And I know I haven't put out a video or live streamed in a while, but I'm trying to get back on the hobby horse. So if you have an opportunity to tune in, please come tune in, watch it live, or watch this video later on. I don't mind either way. But what I'm going to talk about today is Nick Reiner and Nick Reiner's legal defense. For those of you who don't know, I'm a practicing criminal defense lawyer out of Pittsburgh, PA. I've been practicing for going on 12 years now, and I've done jury trials, non-jury trials, pleas, motions, everything that you can pretty much imagine in the criminal world except practice in federal court. But on a state level, I have seen almost all of it. Certainly not all of it, but a lot of it at this point in time. So I think I'm very much qualified to speak on this topic, and I'm going to give you an opinion on what I think Nick Reiner's only defense is and what I think his lawyer, I believe his name is Alan Jackson, is up to. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. This is Joe the Lawyer. If you like my content, please like, subscribe, comment, and share. And if you've watched any of my other content before, you know before we kick in, before we get started, we do a same time sip. Hats off to Scott Adams, one of the all-time greatest YouTubers and cartoonists. But please, cheers with me. It tastes better when we sip together. Cheers. This creamy Coca-Cola is some good stuff. Okay, so I'm sure most of you are familiar by now. Rob Reiner is a world-famous Hollywood producer who produced some tremendous movies. The only one that really comes to my mind just straight from memory is The Princess Bride, just one of the greatest movies, just super entertaining. He's done tons of other really, really blockbuster-type films. And as I think most of you know, him and his wife were murdered in their Los Angeles home. I don't know if it was quite in Los Angeles. I know it was in California. And the prime suspect for the murder is Rob Reiner's adult son, Nick Reiner. And I guess Nick, from what I've read and what I've listened to on YouTube, Nick had a past where he dealt with drug addiction. I think he was still dealing with drug addiction. And Nick was, let me see real quick here. How old is Nick Reiner? 32 years old at the time of this murder, alleged murder. And I read some of the facts. They were at a party that night, and I think it was Conan O'Brien's party, and Nick was apparently very erratic, which wasn't too unusual, but perhaps he was more erratic than usual. They said I think he got into a fight with another movie star or some sort of argument. And I don't know all the details here, but his dad kind of told him to leave or something along those lines. He was politely told to leave, and he left the party that night. And either that night or sometime, I think the next day, Rob Reiner and his wife were found brutally murdered in their bedroom, stabbed dozens of times, including each of them having their throats slit, which is just totally gruesome way to go. And I believe Nick was seen leaving the house and wandering around aimlessly, and then he was in a car, and the police picked him up not too much after the incident. And I don't know all the evidence. I don't think anybody knows all the evidence yet, but apparently Nick had blood on him. And due to his history and everything that had occurred that night at Conan's party, he is the primary suspect. He had access to the house. I believe the bodies were discovered when a masseuse had come to the house for an appointment with Rob, and she wasn't able to gain access. Nobody would answer the door. So she contacted Rob's daughter, who lives across the street, and the daughter came over and found the bodies. And again, because of the party the night before and where Nick was found and he's seen leaving the house, he is the primary suspect. Now, it's a little bit like the OJ case, right? In one sense is this is a murder where and this is true of most murders, but not all. But this is a murder where there is no direct evidence, at least that we know of yet, linking Nick to the murder. Now, there might be a murder weapon, etc. But more so than direct evidence, there may be some what we would consider direct physical evidence that comes up. But nobody saw this happen, right? Nobody saw Nick do it. And I don't believe it's on video, although there may be some video of the house. But Nick is the primary suspect for a number of reasons. For all of the circumstances around the murder, there's a lot of circumstantial evidence that is pointing to him. So let me get this piece off of my shirt. So Nick is incarcerated currently. He's in jail in the county where he's being held and where he's charged. And I believe he's been formally charged with first-degree murder. And he hired an attorney named Alan Jackson, who I had never heard of before, but apparently he's very high profile, and he's dealt with, I think, some celebrity cases in the past. This is Mr. Jackson, and excuse me, and he's supposedly a really, really good criminal defense lawyer. I have no reason to believe otherwise. I think he's maybe in his 50s or 60s. And what really caught my attention on this case is I'm a big fan of Dr. Todd Grande's YouTube channel. And you can see over here to this side of me, which for you guys, it's to my left, but I think it's to your right. He did 2 videos on the Nick Reiner murder, the murder of Rob Reiner. And the first video he did was 13 days ago. This is the one right over here. Nepo Baby Nick. Murder follows legendary director's dismissal of mental health experts on Sun. And then he did another video. Did Nick Reiner's disturbing attitude foreshadow alleged parricide? I guess parricide is what it's called when somebody murders their parents. And Dr. Grande did a really tremendous analysis and summary of the case. And Alan Jackson, and let's see here real quick. Alan Jackson defense. Oh, he defended Karen Reed. That's right. Alan Jackson defends Nick Reiner. It appears that Alan Jackson has already planned a defense for Nick Reiner. And this AI overview is pretty decent. Alan Jackson, prominent defense attorney known for high-profile cases like Karen Reed, is defending Nick Reiner. And I think Dr. Grande said that Alan Jackson his hourly rate is $2,500 per hour, or maybe $4,000 or $5,000 per hour, something just tremendous. Anyway. Alan Jackson's defending Nick Reiner against double murder charges for killing his parents, Rob and Michelle Reiner, in their Brentwood home. Jackson's strategy involves asking for restraint, emphasizing complex issues, possibly mental health, and potentially challenging premeditation, while Reiner faces serious charges, including life without parole or death penalty. All right, that is not the best. That is not really what I think is a good summary of what the defense strategy will be. It's kind of jumping all over the place. If you see here, potential strategies, experts suggest Jackson might focus on psychiatric issues, argue against premeditation, or even explore if Reiner was drugged at a party at the party at Conan's party. I doubt he'd go that path. Although he could always mention it in passing, because I don't know that it can necessarily be disproven. But Dr. Todd Grande talked about a possible insanity defense, and placed on medical examiner information in Reiner's case. Maybe this is a better article. Anyway, Dr. Grande talked about an insanity defense, and he stated, first of all, that he thought that, and this is in the Nepo Baby Nick video, that he believed that Nick was going to be found guilty, and that an insanity defense would not work for Nick. And then in his second video, he kind of went into more depth over this argument, and it took a longer look at Rob and Nick. And I think it's worth checking both of these videos out if you're interested in this case. But in both videos, Dr. Grande, and when I watched the first video, Nepo Baby Nick, he said he didn't think an insanity defense was going to be successful. And I'm thinking to myself, because I'm an experienced criminal defense attorney, I was like, I disagree with you. And then I thought in his second video that he was going to maybe walk that back a bit and say, yeah, maybe the insanity defense will work. But no, he kind of doubled down. And let me just say this. I think Dr. Grande's videos are tremendous. I watch almost every one that comes out. He does a legal analysis along with his medical psychiatric analysis. I'm not quite sure. I think he's a psychiatrist or a psychologist. But his videos are just tremendous. I love Dr. Grande, but I think he's wrong in this scenario. So I will get to why he's wrong. But first, let me talk about what I think the defense strategy is going to be for Nick. And you know, the thing with OJ was nobody saw him commit these murders, and he didn't really. I don't believe they ever developed an alibi for him to say that he was somewhere else. But nobody saw him commit the murders. They had these gloves, and they didn't have very much direct evidence, like the murder weapon or otherwise, to link him to link OJ Simpson to the murders at his house. Now, there was plenty of circumstantial evidence, and there was a motive, right? There was a motive, but no real direct evidence. And that's one of the reasons OJ won the case. And this is not that different. Although I think here they will probably have more evidence than they did for OJ, because they can place Nick, I think, probably at the house at the time of the murder or around the time of the murder, I would imagine, using video, things that just that didn't exist, 35 years ago. I mean, they did, but every house wasn't plastered with cameras all over. And so I think it's going to be a little harder for Nick to just kind of probably wiggle out of this one by saying, you can't prove that it's me. It wasn't me, right? Classic defense. Whereas OJ sort of won the case on that defense. Hey, it wasn't me. And if you watch, if you're a fan of these things, F. Lee Bailey, one of OJ's primary defense lawyers, stated he thought they won the case because there was a witness who had seen somebody at the house that was not OJ, and F. Lee Bailey actually thought that was the most powerful piece of evidence that led to his acquittal, because now they had somebody else that they could argue may have committed the murder, which is generally huge. And so here, we don't know all the evidence yet. We will. We will see more of the evidence as it's going along. But I imagine they have a bit more circumstantial evidence on Nick. They're probably going to be able to place him there. They're going to nail him down there. He's got a motive with the fight, etc. And then there's blood found. Maybe they recovered the murder weapons, etc. And so if that's the case, the circumstantial evidence may be more or less overwhelming against Nick. And if that is the case, then what is a defense lawyer to do? And this goes back a bit to Dr. Grande, where they talked about an insanity defense. And the reason I think that it's going to go this way is because so this is the medical examiner. I know I saw this, but almost as soon as Nick Reiner was taken into the jail, he was given a mental health evaluation. Now, The interesting thing will be whether or not that evaluation was done by Alan Jackson's doctors. His defense lawyer find these doctors. Was it an independent doctor? But let's look real quick here. Nick Reiner mental health evaluation. Now, Nick Reiner's mental health issues were pretty well, let's say, documented. Right? He had issues with drugs and alcohol, probably depression and anxiety. But the big kicker here is schizophrenia. And I don't know if I think he was. Tabloid news service TMZ reported Nick has been diagnosed with schizophrenia, complex psychotic disorder, while the New York Post quoted a family friend as saying Nick's outbursts at age 11 were so severe he had to be restrained in bear hugs. Psychologists at Northeastern University said people with depression, anxiety, schizophrenia, or bipolar tend to use drugs and alcohol. And Dr. Grande did not think that the schizophrenia would be strong enough or powerful enough for Alan Jackson to mount an effective insanity defense for this particular scenario. And I actually have to disagree. And, anytime a lawyer is going to mount an insanity defense, the prosecution is going to have ways to try to poke through it or force people to see through it. And so one of the main things is insanity is generally going to be most effective when a person has, like, let's say, a quick episode of insanity or a couple hours episode of insanity or just a couple of days. To argue somebody's just going around insane all the time is harder. But if a person has just an episode of insanity, that can be easier to swallow for a jury. But what a district attorney is going to do is they're going to connect these dots and try to say, okay, maybe this person had mental health issues, but it doesn't mean that they were insane. And here's why. They planned this murder, right? In Nick's case, there's, hours or almost a day between the party and the murders. And they're going to say that he had a motive to kill that lied outside of the schizophrenia. So they're going to try to pierce. They're going to use evidence, and the prosecution will probably get their own doctor to say it wasn't insanity, and which this trial is going to be set up for as a battle of the experts. But the prosecution is going to try to pierce that insanity defense. But there was something that Dr. Grande said, I can't remember which video it is, that makes me think that this is actually going to be a really good insanity defense, and better than most insanity defenses. And there was something that Dr. Grande said that makes me think that this is that's the way it's going to go, that this is going to be an above average insanity defense. It's going to be one of the better ones that we see in court on a regular basis. And that is that Nick had, first of all, been diagnosed with the schizophrenia long ago, so he's not sort of concocting this out of thin air, okay? So it's a well-established mental health disorder, but there's a particular fact that makes it really, really strong. And that is that Nick had apparently recently gone off of the meds that he had and had gone on to new medications. Sorry about that. Had gone off the meds he had and had gone on to new medications. And so the medication, right, the change in medication, I almost guarantee this is what Alan Jackson is going to argue. Because they got this diagnosis. I think they got another diagnosis as soon as, I can't find it right now, as soon as he went into the jail. But Alan Jackson's going to argue that Nick was on these meds. He was on a certain med to treat his schizophrenia, and then he switched to another medication. And while he was on that medication, he was what we would call insane and or temporarily insane. And I don't know what the definition of insanity is in California, but when you can't understand your actions or the consequences of your actions, that's one way of understanding what insanity is. And this is literally a textbook situation, a textbook case of insanity in the law, where a person has, number one, a powerful mental health issue, a very powerful mental health issue, right? This is not just anxiety. This is not just depression. This is schizophrenia. Schizophrenia, and as Dr. Grande states, it comes in different levels of seriousness. I think there's like a type 1, 2, and 3. And, 3 is the most powerful one, where a person almost lives in a delusional world. But schizophrenia is very powerful mental health illness that typically meets the definition of insanity in a legal case. Couple that with the fact that Nick went off his meds and went on to a new medication, and the new medication changed how he was feeling, changed his behavior. This is a textbook. I'm telling you, textbook. There are cases on this in probably every state in the union, calling this insanity under the legal definition. And typically, and here's another thing about Dr. Grande sort of got incorrect. He's right that if you go to trial and you use just the general standard insanity defense, and a jury finds you to be not guilty by reason of insanity, okay, it doesn't mean you win the case, right? You're not acquitted and you go free. Instead, you are committed to a mental health institution, and you will stay there until a judge perhaps sees fit to release you. But at the very least, they're going to have to believe that you're cured of the insanity and that your mental health issues are under control. And Nick could very well spend the rest of his life, or a long period of his life, there, even if he's found not guilty by reason of insanity. However, tucked in here, coded in here, is an even better defense that Alan Jackson may be going for, and that is not guilty by reason of what's called temporary insanity. And the argument here is that Nick is a normal person, right? Or at least is a well-structured individual. And I don't know that this will be true. And Dr. Grande is right about this. Nick's long history is going to work against him. But if he is successful on a temporary insanity argument, what we're looking at here is when you have temporary insanity defense, the person is just insane for a period of time, but then regains their sanity, right? So sane, insane, crime is committed, and then the person can become sane again. And a textbook scenario for that is when a person with schizophrenia is on one medication, either goes off their medication. That's the more typical one, right? Person is on their medication, goes off, becomes insane while they are off their medication, but then can be made sane again when they get back on the medication. So you just have a period of what's referred to as temporary insanity. And this is well documented by psychiatrists and in the law. And I think Alan Jackson may go for that. And he can do both. He can argue insanity and or temporary insanity. And I think because of the particular facts here, super strong mental health defect, schizophrenia, and a change in medication, I actually think Alan Jackson has a very good chance of being successful. Whether he'll get the whole temporary insanity thing, I don't know. That would be probably in Nick's mind the best result, right? Because temporary insanity means you're acquitted and you go free, and you are released back into society with treatment, perhaps. Okay, but temporary insanity defense that is successful results in an acquittal, and the person is not committed to a mental health institution for perhaps the rest of their life. So if he's not guilty just by reason of insanity, then he will be committed to a mental health institution for probably a very, very long time. But if he's not guilty by reason of temporary insanity, he will win the case outright. So Alan Jackson, I think, is going to set this case up so that those two options are presented to the jury in an extremely powerful and provocative way, and in a way that I believe, if I had to put my money on it, will be successful. Now, the prosecution will poke holes in that, and the prosecution will have their own expert. But I think their expert is probably going to have to make a lot of concessions here, just because of the severe mental health defects of Nick Reiner. So I think Dr. Grande is wrong there. Now, he knows more about these insanity diagnoses than I do, but he didn't even mention in his videos the temporary insanity defense, which will be available to Nick. And with a really, really skilled attorney and a really good expert, I think the jury will go that way. Juries like to go that way. It gives them sort of an escape route where they don't have to find somebody guilty if they certainly have some doubts, but they're still going to send them off somewhere and keep the person away from society. And so that's a great way to split the baby. And that's something that juries love to do. So I think that's the way Alan Jackson's going to go, because there's probably, I'm not saying this for sure, there's probably too much evidence to just say it wasn't Nick. Nick didn't do it. So when you're faced with that situation as a criminal defense lawyer, you need a different type of defense, and the insanity defense is really, really appropriate in this situation. So I love you, Dr. Grande, but I disagree with you. I think Alan Jackson's going to be successful on the insanity defense or temporary insanity. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in. I know I didn't get too many live viewers, but I'm hoping to make some more videos going forward here. I got to get my chat set up. Here we go. All right, I got my chat set up, and then I put you guys right on it. Hello, Chelsea May, for tuning in. I appreciate it. But I hope to tune in. I hope to make some more videos. Let me know what you guys want me to talk about. I'm going to talk about this Nick Reiner case. I think it's one of the more interesting cases that's going on right now. I know we have the Luigi case out there, and some other big cases going on, but that's what I want to talk about here. So, leave a like, leave a comment. Thank you, everybody. Hope to do more videos. Sorry it's been a while, but raise your glass in the air. Cheers with me. Cheers. Everybody.